All right, folks, this video, we've got the Aorus Z690 Aorus Ultra. This is a DDR5 motherboard with PCIe 5.0. Looks like we're missing a tab here. So I did buy this off eBay used. They didn't have a CPU protector. You should always keep these covered, right? So I just did the unboxing and overview. And so I want to put a CPU in there right away just to get this thing make sure it's nice and safe. Now, we are going to put a bunch of drives in here. We'll put some RAM in here. Normally, folks, when I build up one of these, I would just do the CPU, one stick of RAM, okay, preferably in A2 or B2. I'd put it in one of those. And then if I need a graphics card, we would install that. In this video, I'm going to install drives in every one of these spots. I'm going to put the CPU in, and depending on what RAM we find, we'll do one, two, or we'll do one or two sticks in there. All right. So since we don't have the black cover, I'm going to go ahead and lift this up. Now, normally, folks, on the black cover, and you can just barely see it, there's a triangle here. Try to line that up with the CPU. And I'm trying to think of what I've got this motherboard for. I paid $140 for it, $140, plus whatever it cost me to ship it. This is one of Aorus's better motherboards. So there's the CPU we're going to put in it. I5-13600kf, which I just so happen to find sitting around. Ideally I wanted to put the i9-13900kf in this. As this will be my best motherboard, assuming it works and we don't have any problems with it. So I always like to make sure this is seated, and it is. Basically, if you put it in there and it goes in correctly, it should feel the same touching this side as it does the other. That green board is pretty much at the same level as the frame that it's sitting on. So from there, we're going to drop that down, and then I got to rotate this so you guys can see it. Usually my hands get in the way. And the fact that I just dropped that, safety first, make sure that did not pop up. It's good. I can't tell you how easy it is to just jam this thing down and bust off the socket pins. Alright, so we're going to drop that down, and boom, we've got our CPU in there. Pretty easy. Now we got to figure out, folks, what cooler we're going to put on here. We do a lot of the same installations, and sadly I probably have 50 CPU coolers, and I'm missing not missing half the frames, but I don't have them together. So we're going to go find a CPU cooler to put on this. Alright, so we're going to install the Thermalright Frost Commander 140. This is a nice looking model. It cost me, I think, $37. It's amazing for what you can get sometimes on Amazon. Dual tower. You could potentially put dual 140 millimeter fans on here. It comes with 140 millimeter fan and a 120. It has kits for LGA 1151 and basically 1200. Or you can have a kit for 1700. Now, some of the parts are in both bags of hardware, which is good because I had lost one of these screws and I'm like, oh no, I can't do this, but luckily we've got it. All right. So first thing we're going to do, folks, is we're going to build this up, and then once we get it built up, we'll put the thermal paste on. You could do it now, but there's a chance you'll end up getting thermal paste on your fingers or smearing it all over the place, right? So best to wait. I'm going to go ahead and take this out. So we're going to have, and I'm going to take this off because we are going to put drives in. All right, so I'm going to put this underneath here, and easier probably to flip it over and hopefully get these things lined in, and then drop it down. Now, if you do this and just release it, it's probably going to pop out of place. So what I always do is take it to the end of the counter or under your table, and then get my hands out of there and then slide it over. All right, so we're good to go for that aspect. Now, got 4 of these things, and you want to screw those into the itty bitty posts that are barely sticking up. And let's rotate that around so you can see the other 2. Now we'll tighten those down a bit more. So this is a solid design. I've got to say, good old Noctua must have the patent on, you know, pretty much this design, the bone itself, because everybody else's mount is a wee bit harder to put together. It'll still work though, but so you can see either I have mixed matched or I've got one of these upside down. Honestly, it's not going to matter because they're threaded the same way. At least hopefully it won't. But just so they'll look the same, we'll flip that over. I think honestly this was supposed to be reversed 180, but what are you going to do, you know? All right, so we've got them all looking that way. Now, at this point, folks, we have to figure out our CPU cooler. We want it mounted this way, all right? And so, do you see the screws there? We need the bracket to basically look like this, all right? And the same with the other one. It's got to look like that, all right? So, now we can take our screws, and I'm just going to try and finger tighten these. And then we'll get our, we'll find a Phillips head screwdriver. Looks like a number 1 will work. Yeah, I'm so glad I figured out where the missing screws were, or not missing screws, but where some extra screws were. I really like this CPU cooler. You may have noticed in one of my videos the Thermalright Assassin 120, which is smaller than this. It's a beast, you know. And so I was like, I want to get this thing back up and running. Now, can't say this works so great with the 13th gen i7-13700K or the i9-13900kf, but for the i5 it's going to be a good match. Alright, so we went with a number 2. This came with one of my CPU coolers. I'm just going to tighten this. I'm not trying to break anything, but I am definitely trying to tighten this thing down. Now, while I'm doing this, don't forget to check out my other videos that I have. How to update the BIOS using BIOS flashback button over here or through the BIOS, alright? Now we need some thermal paste, folks. So the other question really will be is, can we get RAM access after the fact, after we put this in? And it doesn't look like it's going to be a problem. After you put the fan on, it will be. So let's go ahead and put our RAM in next. Now, folks, always, you know, check to see if your RAM's compatible with the motherboard. I did not do that. This is Aorus RAM DDR5. It worked with the Elite AX, so I'm making the assumption it works here, but you should not be as foolish as I am, all right? So we're going to stick this one in here. This RAM in some motherboards is kind of a pain in the ass to get in, but it looks like it's all right. You want to hear a double snap. And if you do it really, I would say perfectly on each end, you might not even be able to tell there's double snap, but like that time. All right, so we've got that in, folks. Now guess what? We need thermal paste. Let's go grab some of that. It just so happens we have Thermalright TF4. I believe this came with TF6, which is better, but we'll go ahead and use this. And I'm just going to put a nice big blob in the middle. Hope that spreads out. Sometimes I'll do 5 lines, sometimes I'll do multiple dots. So we're ready to put the CPU cooler in. Change up my view a little bit. Alright. Now if anybody cares, using the Samsung S20 Ultra to record this, this is why you want this screwdriver. I think we're shooting 4K, 60 FPS. Not that you really need the added frames for this, but it will shoot 8K, and I'm not honestly sure why I'm not taking advantage of 8K. So I digress. What I'm doing is putting a few threads on each side. We want to, you know, basically evenly press this cooler down onto the CPU, and between the CPU and the CPU coolers, the thermal paste filling in those gaps and hopefully allowing better heat transfer across from the CPU to the CPU cooler. Now, if you don't tighten this down correctly, you may find your temperatures are a lot hotter. This should keep the CPU, I would think, anywhere from 25 to say 35 degrees Celsius, just idling. And from there, you know, if you don't have it in there correctly, you'll probably be in the 40s, just idling. And then once you go gaming, it's going to skyrocket, or if you run a benchmark, it'll skyrocket. So that's in, folks. Now, interesting enough, with this heatsink, we may have interference here. And we may not. Look at that. So, remember what I said at the beginning. If I was going to do this like I normally do for a first build, I would not put a drive in until after the fact, because I'd want to get it to go into the BIOS. But I'm trying to show you guys in this video how you would go about building this up. Now, potentially, you may have issues with this drive. You always want to find it, get it into the BIOS first. If you can get it there, then you're going to be golden. So if this is not put in correctly, it's going to jiggle all over the place, so we're good there. Tape, remove that, or don't. But I'm going to leave it on there. I'll probably resell this at some point. Be like, yep, never use that. I say that. But that's not going to help with your coolant, leaving the tape on there, right? That's more of an insulator. But we are going to leave it on. So I've got all these drives, right? Just sitting around, needing a home. They've dropped in value considerably. Otherwise, I would probably sell some and get bigger ones. Alright, so we're going to stick these in here. These are all Gen 3. The one that I put in originally was Gen 4, alright? So, a lot of times that individual spot closest to the CPU may be the best location for it. We're going to put this down, and line that up. Now obviously folks, I have not put the CPU fans on yet. We'll get to that. If you're watching this just for the CPU cooler, I apologize. This may not be the optimal way to slap this together, but it'll work. And you know what? We didn't line that up correctly. So we're going to try again. So the only thing maybe I don't like about this, I love the fact that this just, it looks really good, right? It's a good looking motherboard. Now the Z790s by Gigabyte have this little mechanism to help you get the graphics card off. Obviously this person got irritated with trying to get their graphics card out and pop that off. I do have two white ones here. Is it okay to mix the white and the black ones? Good question, folks. Just kidding. Of course it is. Now I would have to pop that off, and this may be broke where those are, you know, good, or taking them off I may break them. But I have one sitting around somewhere, because guess what, with my Elite AX I popped that off too. And that CPU, that motherboard always sits in this orientation. If you had it in a computer, you got to make sure that your graphics card is bolted down good. Alright, so we've got that. Let's put our fans in. Alright. Now we want these to all blow in the same direction. Alright. So this is the intake side. This is the exhaust. Alright. This one goes in the middle. But let's do the outside one first, just so we make sure that we do it correctly. Alright, once again, intake, exhaust, sucking in cool air and exhausting across the heat sink. So this is going to have some warmer air as it gets to the next cooler. Now, some things, you know, I don't always do. We need a splitter for this, folks, that we do not seem to have in the box, because we can do this two ways. If we have a splitter, these will run at the same RPM, or, you know, worse, we'll use the optional. That's not really what I want to do. And the other thing to do sometimes, if you plug this in beforehand, so just for this, let's say we don't have the splitter and I'm forced to use this, I'm going to use the optional for this fan, and then I want to basically wrap this to tie up the loose, as much of that loose cable as I can. Alright, and then I'm just going to sit it there right on top of this thing, and hopefully it'll stay. Then we're going to take our brackets, and sometimes this can be the most frustrating part of this. Put that through the hole, put that through the hole, and then pull it. So it looks like that's the one. We might have been able to make that next one, but so we're going to do the same thing here again. This side, and boom. Now, is that in there nice and tight, folks? Yes, it is. I don't know if that would reach the next one, actually. Yeah, it won't. So these are either stretched out from me using them. Alright, so then we have this one. Let's go ahead and plug it in. And once again, if I had the splitter, folks, I would use it. And I'll probably, if I find one after I install this, we'll replace these so I can show that step. If you don't see that step, that means I don't know where it is. So you don't want to force these. Hopefully my pins aren't bent. I did buy this used. Alright, so that's in. Same thing, folks. Intake, exhaust. You want these blowing in the same direction, right? You don't want them fighting each other. So I'm going to wind this thing in here, and hopefully, nope, not going to make it. So it's going to go like this. And unfortunately, you're going to have to do something with that cable. Alright, so we'll do one side at a time. Putting this through the holes. Boom. I'll jump to the other side. And I'm trying to get this guy to go in that hole, but we might have some problems. So we got that one in. Sometimes you have to do this outside, and it looks like that's how we're going to do it. Alright, pop that off. Some fans you can get away with what I was doing. In this case, I just couldn't get it in there. And then drop that down. We want that thing sitting low, you know, on the heat tower, heat sink, whatever. This is the hottest part right here, right? So we want to cool that part. And that's the way that's going to look. Alright, so we found this. I don't know if I call this a splitter. It's not really a splitter because it's going 2 into 1, right? But this is actually a knock 201. Should work for this. The one that you should have got should be white, I believe. This one's black. Now, these fans, one runs up to 1800 RPM and the other runs up to 1850. All right, so they're a close enough match. And now I have screwed around with my Noctuas, putting a 3000 RPM fan in there, only to find that is ungodly loud, and it is, you know, only helps you by a couple degrees. Now, if you notice, folks, this cable possibly now could be wrapped around a few times, but we're going to go ahead and put this in, and I'll leave the cable tie stuff up to you guys, but whatever you do, don't let your fans or your cables get into your fan. All right, so we will deal with that later. Just get out of the way. All right, so we got RAM. We're good there. What else would we do, folks? In your case, you know, you've got all these case connectors, right? But to get this thing fired up in the beginning, we're only going to need the power switch. So I'll show you that connection. All right, so from your case, you may have all these different connectors. Reset switch. Here's our power switch. HDD LED should be in here. Reset and power LED, right? But you know, for you noobs, just go ahead and only hook up this one to begin with. You want to make sure this thing's going to power up, all right? So we got that. I'm actually going to grab a power supply. Sometimes, you know, I install these in cases. Sometimes I'll do it outside of a case. Obviously, I'm doing that right now. We're going to just fire this thing up to make sure that it will power up. And then eventually I will do all the other stuff. But you saw it was an i5-13600kf, so we need a graphics card and I need a power supply. Alright, so I'm going to slide this all the way to the end so my graphics card hangs over the edge. And here's a GTX 1630. It doesn't have the PCIe power, so it makes life a little easier. We'll put that on the end. And I would hook this up to a monitor and all that good stuff, but like I said, we're just going to fire this thing up. Somebody gave me crap for, using the i5-13600kf with the GTX 1630. Just in the past, I've used the GT 1030 with high-end CPUs, but the truth is, folks, people do occasionally want to know how those pair up, right? So I just make the video. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's something I would recommend or choose, but I slap things together and that's the way it goes, and then we do some gaming with it. I don't think you guys can see the 24 pin. Alright, so 24 pin ATX power supply. That can go in only one way. And make sure the 20 part and the 4 part is in there good, right? Otherwise, you'll have problems. Now, just because we're firing this up, and my power supply that I'm using does not have an additional one, we're only going to hook up one set of CPU power connectors. And that was interesting, folks. I kicked the tripod and it dropped the angle down. Alright, so I'm going to put this in. Now if I'm lucky, I just noticed something, folks. My computer is actually got some slight damage here. I don't know if that happened shoddy packing, but hopefully I'll be able to use these USBs. I forgot in my video to go over the IOs, but oh well. Alright, so now we've just got to plug our power supply in. Power supply in. Turn this to on. Grab our little power switch and hope we see something. So you'll see the graphics card. Let's go to this angle. You can see a light on right there, okay? So it's energized. And let's go ahead. Fire this up. Now we do have a red. If we're lucky, the red lights right there will go away. You see, I think that's a so we've got some kind of message. Easy debug. I'm not sure which one that is. It's going back and forth still. Hopefully it's good. We will hook this up to a monitor, make sure it's good to go. I'm not actually familiar with the digital output on this thing. That might be spitting out some codes. The mere fact that that's moving around doesn't look like such a good thing. But yeah, hopefully you'll have better luck if I actually have a problem. And I will, work to figure out what's going on. But that is essentially how you would install stuff and then try and get it up and running. Now, like I said, all those drives in there may not help me with troubleshooting. The RAM, one stick. If we have a bad RAM slot, that could be a problem. But it at least fired up, and that was the first goal. Second goal was to actually see the BIOS. So thanks for checking out my video, folks. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you.